quorum present. Mr. Hogan is here, Mr. Fun is here, Ms. Howells is here. Mr. Velt will not be attending today. Our quorum is 4, and we have 4 members present. There is a quorum. Are there additions to the agenda? Let me make one note that we have one agenda item that's November election discussions. And this item, it says under there, the first item is members' remarks. This is for any member to bring up any issue that relates to the November 3rd election that they believe they want to address before the board today, or they want the board to address, or they want the staff to address. So it is an open forum in that sense for the members. We have a number of items. I have a number of items that I know that we're going to be dealing with. So there will be a number of things that we'll be talking about. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the board minutes. And it's my understanding that the July 23rd minutes have been presented to the board. They were sent out about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Board members have had an opportunity to look and comment. And unless there is a question or an issue, I would, Chair would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 23rd meeting.
This is PJ. So moved.
Second?
Malcolm. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. And the minutes of the July meeting are approved. Next item on the agenda is a closed session for legal advice. I have elected to, in fact, use that closed session. So therefore, the board will now consider whether to meet in closed session, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice and consult with staff on potential or pending litigation as permitted by section 3305 B7 and 8 of the General Provisions article. Meeting in closed session would allow members of the board to seek and obtain legal advice with board counsel without waiver of the attorney-client privilege. May I have a motion to meet in closed session?
So moved.
Second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Sal? Sal?
Have we lost Malcolm?
Yeah,
No, I'm here.
you all
I
can
see.
hear me. I don't think Kelly can hear.
I can hear.
Oh, okay. I
Okay.
didn't.
I thought you were saying Malcolm.
Oh, that's me. I just don't pronounce words very well.
Sorry.
Kelly, you voted aye. Is that correct?
I did. Yes, I did.
Thank you very much. The motion having passed, the board will meet in closed session in accordance with exemptions B7 and 8 of section 3305 of the Open Meetings Act. For those who are watching, we anticipate this being a fairly brief session. The estimate was 10 minutes, and therefore I'm giving it 15. And we expect to be back in session in 15 minutes. So at this point, I am recessing the open meeting of the state board so that we may meet in closed session. And I will see you all there. Malcolm, are we live?
Let me confirm. Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I'm calling the State Board of Elections meeting back to order, and the closed session now being terminated. The next item on the agenda is the November election discussion, and it indicates members' remarks. This is for various members to bring up matters that may relate to November 3rd. I certainly have a number of items that I'd like to discuss. Before I open it to the members, the first item I would like to deal with, Nikki, would you give us an indication of where we are on the schedule for the ballots?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. So we are currently in the process of designing and laying out the ballots. And so that process can't start until several pieces of information are known. Of course, we need to have all the candidates. And so in the month of August, or late July, early August, there were deadlines for petition candidates for third parties. And so the local boards of elections received petitions for these candidates and needed to verify the number of signatures that they submitted. So we did have, for third-party candidates, we don't know who they are until that petition process is complete, and that is ongoing and finishing up shortly. Also at the end of July is the deadline for language for ballot questions to be submitted. So we received those at the end of July. And then the political party conventions are happening, obviously one this week and one next week, and that is the official act of naming the nominee for president for the two primary political parties. So those are all things that are happening late July into August that we need to have done before we can finalize the ballots. So we are moving forward with the designing and the laying out of the ballots. We also had litigation relating to a local candidate that was decided by a court yesterday. So that hopefully wraps up the open question as to who is on the ballot for that local contest. After the ballots are laid out and all of the candidates and ballot questions are in the ballot and for Prince George's and Montgomery County translated, then those ballots go to the local boards of elections for proofing. And they very carefully review all of the ballots to make sure that all the candidates are listed, that the candidates' names are spelled correctly, that their audio pronunciation is correct, and then proofing the ballot questions. So where we are in the process is that still working through the development of the ballot. No ballots have been mailed yet. We know that voters are very anxious to receive their ballots, and we're very anxious to deliver them, but we need to follow the very deliberate process of preparing and approving the ballots. Under state law, the ballot printing can start on September 3rd. So we are on track to meet that, and expect that we will meet the federal requirement that overseas and military ballots are mailed by the 45th day, which is September 18th. So we will be transmitting ballots to our military and overseas voters by that date. And then the next week, we'll start transmitting ballots to domestic and civilian voters. So that's looking like the late September, mid to late September is when we will start getting ballots out to voters. So that is the plan where we are, and everything so far is on track to meet that schedule.
Thank you, Nikki. Any questions for Nikki about this? So just not to put too fine a point on it, but from a technical perspective, we have to know who all the candidates are as a matter of fact, not as a matter of anticipation. And then we need to have all of this put together, and we're working on it. We're putting together the things can be put together. We have to have several ballots translated, and then ultimately everything has to be, when it's in its final form, proofed by the local board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we're on track to meet all of our statutory requirements? Is that correct?
We are. That's correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything?
Mr. Chairman, this is PJ. Just to the extent any media are listening, to the chairman's point, there was an article headlined in the Sun today. I think it was "Ballots Not Printed Yet." Well, I hope you now understand why they're not printed yet. It's not official. It wasn't official until last night that Joe Biden was the Democratic nominee. It won't be official next week until the Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. I hope people just understand there are things. The State Board of Elections is not sitting around twiddling their thumbs, not printing ballots. It's not official yet. So I beg the media or anybody that's watching to understand what's going on. That this is the normal statutory and regulatory process that has to go through.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Next item that I wanted to address is the numbers that are being provided to us in terms of the number of election judges required, the number of election judges that people have. And I saw the documents that were presented, and I noticed that a number of counties either never responded or they in fact have zero need for any election judge because they turned in close to zeros. Does anyone else have any thoughts about these issues?
Mr. Chairman, this is PJ Hogan. Yeah, I thought we made it very clear we've met like every week, if not twice a week. It seems like the last couple. I thought we made it very clear that we needed this data on here are the number of judges we need, here are the number of judges we have committed so far, here are the number that have dropped out. We needed that data from the local boards every Monday morning. And that does not appear to be happening.
Not from the reporting that I saw.
When I was
Really?
reading, sorry.
Oh, you heard you.
When I was reading the report, I was a bit confused when I saw these zeros here for a number of polling places and, the local boards asking for help, but yet they don't provide us with the information that we need to make decisions to help them. And I would think that we would need to have this information before we can decide the next plan of action that we have to take.
Mr. Chairman, I have a data question. So I'm looking at, I'll hold it up. The EV early voting summary dated 8/18/2020. And under the under the sixth column entitled polling places, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, these are the early voting sites. And it shows for each county how many, and then the total at the bottom. And this says 33. It should be in the range of 90. Is that not correct?
Sorry. Yes. So that should equal 79 or 80.
Any idea why it does not?
I think it's because the number of zeros. So looks like some of the bigger counties have zeros, which if they put in their numbers, that number is going to go up significantly.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery, total, they say total precincts, but we're referring to, in this page, we're referring to early voting sites. They have 0. 0 confirmed, 0 dropouts, 0 consolidated, 0 co-located. I don't understand. And the same thing would exist on the election day summary, that number total should be in the range of 282. You know, if you separate the early voting sites that will be open on election day, and then all of the high schools or other facilities. But this only shows 128.
I think it's important to note also that we've consistently said that we know that the numbers will be moving around, that we're not going to say, hey, you said it was 17 last week, and this week you're saying it's 19, and whatever column it happens to be. We know that the numbers are going to move. Certainly, we hope that the number of judges we have is going to increase. So, you know, that's what we want to see. So, I believe we've been saying all along, it's a snapshot. You know, give us a snapshot of where we're at, and continuing the metaphor, I think this is merely a blurry picture, out of focus.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in reading some of the correspondence that we've received, I don't have my hand on it right now, but a number of persons have stated that they've contacted the local boards and said they would be willing to serve as election judges, and there was no response back. You know, how can we do due diligence if we don't have numbers that we can rely on?
And I think that's an excellent point, and it's one that I want to address and just sort of put that one slightly aside. Recruitment of judges, which is what you and I are talking about right now, and just stay with Mr. Hogan's issues about that whatever the numbers are going to be, that we're not getting them. We're not getting any indication from counties of any numbers. Ms. Howell, do you have any thoughts on this?
You know, I share the same concerns that the rest of you have. We need election judges, and if we're going to help these local boards, we need to know some hard and fast numbers. I was a little frustrated with the communication we got saying that election judges were being turned away because it wasn't very specific. It didn't tell us what county that happened in or, you know, who the contact was. It's just, again, another assertion of wrongdoing that we don't have enough information to track it down.
Well, these two issues are interrelated. Recruiting judges and telling us what's going on. But I will say this about the recruitment of judges. we have seen a lot of anecdotal reporting, more than I'm aware of in any other election. And perhaps that just belies my inexperience, but certainly that I don't recall ever seeing. I'm seeing media reports indicating that people are feeling put off by the reaction of at least some local boards. We have social media, which is indicating the same thing, that people are feeling put off or rebuffed by local boards. I have an individual who contacted me whom I consider to be an absolutely reliable source as to this matter. And that individual indicated this very same thing that we're hearing anecdotally. There are two things here that I find unacceptable. One is that we've requested numbers from the local boards and they're sending us zeros. Now, they may say, well, we're not sure about the number of sites that we have. Okay, well, what do you have right now? But okay. But one thing they should absolutely know for sure at this point is the number of people who have said, I will volunteer to be an election judge. That's a hard number. We hope it will move, but it's something firm. It's not something that they're going to say, oh, well, you know, we're going to add 2 sites or cut 2 sites or whatever it might be. So when I see a report that comes through with nothing but zeros on it, it makes me wonder about what the person sending it in is thinking. Clearly, they have to know that they're sending in something that has utterly no value. In fact, it's worse than useless. It's counterproductive. And yet they send it in. These are the reports we're getting. Some counties reporting zeros. As to recruitment of judges, I will tell you this. My life experience and my professional experience is that when a person steps forward and raises their hand and says, here am I, send me, you do not tell them to call back in a couple of weeks. You do not put them off. You reach out and you take their hand and you say, thank you. And even if it is that, you know, we'll get back to you for training, we'll get back to you to get more details, whatever it may be, that deal should be closed right there. And all the anecdotal information plus the one source report that I have, which I consider to be utterly reliable, suggests that in some counties, this is not happening. People are being told this, and we've been hearing this for weeks. I am not even going to speculate, and frankly, the first thing I want to say is, for those counties who are doing things correctly, who are doing a good job at this, who are not the source of these reports, I apologize that you're being, you know, drawn into this because we don't know at this moment where all these counties are. But I'll tell you that I'm very close to asking the administrator to set up a phone number for people to call at the state level to say, hey, I tried to volunteer at this local board and this is where it was and this is who I spoke to. And they told me, you know, yeah, call us back in about 2 or 3 weeks. Because I'd like to know, I would really like to know what's going on out there. But I don't. I know 2 things that are going on in terms of numbers right now in this county that anyone on this call, this meeting, knows about what's going on. Number 1, we know that some counties are sending us zeros for all of their reporting requirements. And number 2, that some number of counties are apparently rebuffing volunteers. To say this is unacceptable is to express the inadequacy of formal language. We have requested and we have asked the local boards to do certain things for us, to give us data, even though we knew that it would be a moving target. But some things wouldn't move, would be more firm, and one of those would be how many judges to be recruited. And we're not seeing it. So in my mind, and I would ask the board to consider discussing this, in my mind, the next step is for the board to direct that those reports be sent in. I'm happy to have them come through mail. I have no problem with that. It's a terrific assistance to the state board. But those reports got to come in. We need those numbers. We didn't know what's happening, what people are doing or not doing. At this point, the chair would like to take a motion to direct the local boards to provide the numbers in the documents that Mr. Hogan was just discussing, the early voting and the election day voting centers, with the number of judges that they require, the number of judges they have in the various categories. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. As to the recruitment of judges, Chair, I would request that Mayo discuss this with the local boards, with the election officials, and try to determine why the public is acquiring a perception that they're not needed and not wanted. Anyone object to that request?
Nope.
No, I don't.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything regarding the matter of the reports or recruitment that they want to address? Any of the members? No?
Mr. Chairman,
Moving on.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to put this out for folks. And the law allows someone 16 years of age or older to be a judge. And state law also requires through our education system that high school students, in order to graduate, have to do so many hours of community service. I encourage local boards to reach out to their county boards of education and see how they might be able to recruit interested high school students that, they certainly for election day when all schools are closed. Who knows what the rest of the calendar of the 8 days of early voting is like, but recruit students. They get paid, they get community service hours. We get judges. To me, it's a win-win-win all around.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Hogan, and I would encourage the local boards not to forget about private schools and homeschool co-ops. Lots of 16, 17, 18-year-olds in those groups.
Well said. Anything further on that, Mr. Hogan?
No, thank you.
Ms. Howells, I think you had indicated to me you had something you wanted to address.
Yes, I did. I wanted to talk about web delivery. I have asked for the numbers of requests for mail-in ballots to be delivered over the internet to be reported to us weekly. And I think last week's number was 45,000. And this week's number, we're up to 53,488. So this number is steadily climbing. And my first question is, I wondered whether we have language on the website for where people go to the SBE website to order a ballot. Is there any language that's been added to discourage them from requesting this form of delivery?
So yes, so it's both on the static PDF as well as integrated into the online voter registration, the online voter registration system, as well as the online ballot request system. So the same language that you approved for the mailer is also on the website.
Okay, very good. My other question was whether or not it's possible to email people who have already requested this form of delivery and ask them to choose to have it sent to them either through the mail or to pick it up in person rather than having internet delivery.
So that is certainly technically possible if that is what the board would like us to do.
Okay, I think we may be getting close to the point where we're going to need to try to do that. There are only two groups of people. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I was just going to say that if we send that email out and if half or a quarter, however many respond, that is an additional transaction for the local boards to process on the front end. I'm just, it's easy for us to send out emails. I mean, that requires us to develop the email and do the work, but there is a corresponding action that occurs at the local board for every email that is returned or every transaction that is generated by that email. So just
right. And we should take all those things into consideration before we decide to do this. Just as a benchmark, in 2018, in the general election, we had 38,000 internet delivered ballots that had to be duplicated. We're up to 53,000 already, and we're 10 weeks out from the election. So I'm really worried about this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess nobody else is worried. I'm the Cassandra.
No, I think,
I don't know how long it took Montgomery County to duplicate those ballots in 2018, but it was a long time. They're going to get tens of thousands of them.
I understand your concern, Ms. Howes. However, the message is on the website, it's on the paper request ballot as well. And I'm sort of remiss to, if a person requests an email ballot after they've looked at and read the application and they still wanted the email ballot, and then for us to turn around and sort of try and discourage them from doing that, to have a paper ballot rather than an email ballot, I don't know if that sends the right message. I know it creates a problem or difficulty in redoing the ballot, and it may slow down the process of tabulating that. But I have a concern if they've made the effort to request a ballot, they've read it, they requested an email ballot, and then they get another correspondence from the election board. Please reconsider how you want your ballot. Perhaps you should do it by paper. I just think that sends the wrong message when a person is agreeing to vote.
Yeah, I'm not sure what message you think that sends. Internet
Changing
ballot.
their way of voting. You're sending a message, well, please change your way of voting.
Right, to help us speed up the process and keep people safe who have to do the canvass. And a pre-printed ballot comes with a pre-printed postage paid envelope, which an internet delivered ballot doesn't. And I fear that a lot of people just do this just because they're comfortable on computers and not because they need it.
Well, you also have to understand that there is a culture out there where their right to vote has been impinged upon over the years. And anytime there is any question of saying, well, okay, you requested this, but we think you should do this. And you may not understand that, but there is an element of population that will feel that you're trying to tell them how to vote, even though you're changing the method that you want them to vote in. And perhaps there is a segment of population that feel that if you tell them one thing once they've made the request to vote, because it's happened historically over the years, and this could be taken as a means of saying, well, you shouldn't vote this way. That's all I'm saying. And I think the message, we should be careful in our messaging when we do this.
Yes, I do. I agree. I even tried coming up with some language that I thought would be inoffensive. I can just read it and suggest it to you. A simple letter, email, 4 paragraphs. Thank you for requesting a mail-in ballot. Second paragraph. We see that you have asked us to deliver your ballot over the internet. Unfortunately, ballots delivered over the internet must be hand copied by election workers before they can be scanned. This slows down the vote counting and increases the risk of spreading coronavirus. Third paragraph. If you can help us make the election a success by voting a pre-printed ballot rather than a ballot you have printed from a computer, please click the link below and let us know. We can either mail your ballot or you can pick it up at your local elections office. Your ballot will include a pre-addressed, postage-paid envelope. Fourth paragraph. If you need to use internet ballot delivery, there is no need to respond to this email. We will send you an email with a link to your ballot when it is ready. I mean, is that really going to tell people we're trying to get them not to vote?
Well, you never know how people are going to think based upon their history and their culture and what may have happened. I see no problem with it, but there are others.
Okay, and just the other point is that we know from experience that when voters request absentee ballots delivered to them over the internet, they are a lot less likely to return the ballot than if they get a pre-printed ballot. And now they have a pre-printed ballot, not only with a pre-addressed envelope, but a postage paid envelope. So I think it would increase turnout to get more people voting on a pre-printed ballot. But I do worry about what Nikki raised, which is that it would have to be processed by the local boards. And I don't have any idea what kind of a hit rate we get with this. If we sent out an email to people who requested internet delivery and said, can you help us out by voting on a pre-printed ballot, would we get a 20% response? Would we get a 50% response? Would we get an 80% response? I have no idea. But anything we can do to hold these numbers down, I
agree wholeheartedly that the mail-in email ballot should be held to a minimum.
Yeah.
But I would think the instructions were quite clear online as well as on the paper request. And they still wanted to do email.
I hope so. A lot of these were requested before we sent it, before it got up on the website. So I don't know how many people have actually had a chance to read this, to read our instructions. But I'm watching these numbers closely. And these numbers, I guess they're now on the website, correct, Nikki?
Yes, we update those numbers every day, well, every weekday, and it's under the press room under 2020 general election reports.
Okay, 2020 general election reports. I don't know, how does anyone else feel? Do you want to have more information about whether this would be difficult for local boards to do, or do you want to push ahead with this? Or
This is PJ. While I certainly get your point about the delay it's going to cause in transposing the ballots, copying them onto a regular ballot, and getting them fed in. I'm willing to bet there are a fair number of people that have requested internet delivery of ballots to themselves because they're worried they're not going to get a ballot or it might come too late. And I don't want to spread that in any form or shape. But I think this is, it's kind of an overused term probably. This is a historical election. I think we're going to have a historic turnout. I think people are paying attention much sooner than they ever have before, which is why you're seeing so many requests, before we even mail out the applications. And the law does allow for the internet delivery of ballots to a voter. I'm torn, to be honest with you. I'd like as few as possible, but I want as many people to vote as possible.
Yeah, I just had trouble hearing PJ's audio. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me, okay. I heard almost nothing that you said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But everyone else did, so it must be a problem on my end.
That's a shame, Kelly, because he was amazingly
Telling everyone how smart he thinks.
brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And I'll never be able to repeat it again.
No, come on. Come on.
All right.
Basically, he came down, and I'll just try and summarize it in this sense and add my own, saying that he's torn because he sees both sides. The way I was thinking as I was listening was that this is one of those rare instances where you can sincerely and truly say, I believe that you and Mr. Fun are both absolutely correct. Approaching the problem from slightly different angles, and they're both true. They're both correct. There's an irony in this whole thing because of the fact that somebody has to take the ballot and rework it. Why don't we do this? Why don't we request thoughts from Mayo and the locals as to whether this would assist them or not? If they unanimously come in and say, we think it would be absolutely awful to do that at this point, and here's the technical reasons why, then we'll have that as a useful data point. And if they come in and they say, we think Ms. Howell had exactly the right idea and we need to do this, then we'll have that as a data point. And that would probably be a better place to start. Does that sound reasonable to you?
That does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Nick, if we can make that recommendation or request to Mayo and local boards. Along the lines, and Ms. Howell brought it up about the paying for postage issue. Linda or Nikki, could we go into a little bit? We've had some communications. I know Montgomery County has communicated. We've got some communications out of the legislature. Could you go into the paying for postage issue for us? Anybody?
Sure. So this application mailing was not budgeted by either the state or local election officials, but we have proceeded forward and submitted a budget request asking for money to cover that. And the way it was proposed to ultimately, it would be a shared expense with the state paying 50% of the cost and the local boards sharing, paying 50%. So that's as it is initially submitted in our budget request, our extra budget request.
Okay, and if the board wish to increase that request, would that be possible to do in some form?
Sure, we can always submit another request.
Okay, so Mr. Hogan, I see you leaning forward.
Thank you. First of all, can Ms. Howells hear me?
No. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. as someone who sat on the Senate Budget and Tax Committee for 13 years, I'm somewhat persuaded by some of the letters we've received. This is in many ways an unfunded mandate that was never anticipated. And so I'm persuaded that we should do everything we can to have, and when I say the state, I mean the state of Maryland, the Department of Budget and Management, not the State Board of Elections, pay for this. When the governor made this decision to mail applications to every voter, I believe it was known to the administration that this would be an additional cost. Administrator Lamone's letter to the Secretary of Budget and Management laid out the additional costs that were going to be needed. And someone can answer the question, if they are available. I can't imagine why federal funds for elections under COVID would not be able to be used for this.
So it might be able to be used, but we don't have any additional of that. There's no additional federal funds to do that. Now, if another batch comes, we can look at what the rules are associated with it, but we don't have any more of the federal funds that we received prior to the June election.
I mean, in some ways, we're going to hold an election around this country, and then afterwards, we're going to have to pay for it. Balance everything out, do all the puts and takes, and what money is funding what. But eventually, it's got to be paid for, and I think that will get worked out. We've made it clear to the administration that this was going to be a more expensive election than normal, and we would be requesting deficiency appropriations. So I'm not even sure whether we can make this decision or whether this is something the governor and the Board of Department of Budget and Management decides.
So we would, if we followed the same process we did before, we would submit the request to the Department of Budget and Management, and then they would make a decision, and then it would follow the normal budget amendment process.
So do we wish to?
Well, I do.
Sal, Mr. Fund?
Yes. I think it has to be done if we want to have the election go off properly.
Sal? You can't hear?
You're muted, I think.
I'm getting message. No, I couldn't unmute, and I'm getting messages that I have a slow connection and I need to switch to a phone call. And I'm using an iPad, and the juice is draining like you would not believe. I'm down to 53% already. I hate technology. It always does me wrong. So what I may do is call in. Oh, that's Malcolm. It's a laugh of recognition, right, Malcolm?
I've experienced the same. When we were on our private meeting, he kicked me out 3 times.
So I didn't hear your question, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Do you have any thoughts about whether to submit another request for deficiency appropriation to have Maryland state funds pay for half of the other half of the postage rather than locals?
It seems like a good idea because this is going to be a very big expense, and it was unanticipated, and it's a result of the governor's order. So if there's any way we can help out the local jurisdictions by coming up with some money, I think we should try to do it.
Okay. At this point, then, the chair would entertain a motion to direct the staff to submit the appropriation to pay for the share that the local jurisdictions would otherwise have paid for in these mailings of the applications.
So moved. Mr. Chair.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next item, and it kind of fits with the whole point of the postage. We're hearing a lot about the Postal Service, about the concerns that people have about ballots not being delivered. And I just wanted to take a moment to touch on that subject matter. And hopefully this information will get out through various social media and press reports. The United States Postal Service was terrific in their service in the June election. And they worked extremely hard to support us and to ensure that things got done. There's no reason to expect that we will not see same level of service in November. Now, if people are truly concerned about whether the post office will deliver their ballots in time, then I would have a series of answers. Number one, when you receive your ballot, if you requested it and you receive your ballot, and we've indicated earlier in the meeting that these will be going out at early September, you complete it and return it in a timely fashion. And you have to turn it around the same day. But if you mail it October, mid-October, your ballot should reach us with a very high degree of probability. If you wait too long and you feel that you're uncertain whether their ballot will be delivered, you can go to the Board of Elections drop boxes. We have several hundred drop boxes that are going to be operating throughout Maryland. And in fact, the state staff is in the process of examining the possibility of other means of drop-off points. So if you truly feel, and I cannot stress enough that the Postal Service will deliver the mail, but if you truly feel you can't do that, or you feel you have not left enough time, go to the drop box, and you can drop them directly to your local Board of Elections. If you elect to vote in person, vote during early voting and vote during the mid-morning and mid-afternoon periods, if at all possible. Those are the slack times. If you do any one of these things I've mentioned, you don't end up on election day going to one of the election day voting centers. And you will have had numerous opportunities to get your vote in. And your vote will be counted. So please use the Postal Service, use the drop boxes. If there's an alternative method in your county, feel free to use that. And if you're going to vote in person, please consider using early voting. It's why we've extended it, why we have emphasized it. The election is going to work, and it's going to work well. People in the local boards know how to do this. They're working hard. People at the state board know how to do it. They're working hard. Everybody's giving their maximum effort to ensure this election is pulled off, that it will work and it will work well. These people have done tremendous things in the past, and I have confidence in them. From the top to the bottom. So, again, please vote early. Use the system that works for you. Your vote will be counted. And with that, the next item, I would like to ask the administrator about the data center, something not far from any of our lawns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have been reaching out to some of our sister agencies to find a data center to use to process the mail-in ballot applications, to take the burden off of the local boards of elections that we anticipate is going to be placed on them. We have, through the Department of Transportation and Motor Vehicle Administration, found some locations at MVA's training facilities where there is space and equipment. However, we have not been able to find any people to help us. Staff has been in touch with the Department of Information Technology staff, and they have put us in turn in touch with some other units of state government. And I know the staff has reached out to them. I haven't gotten any results back yet because I think it just happened today or yesterday. But I am concerned because the clock is ticking. We have to make sure that the equipment that these people, if we find them, are using is up to date and has the right software to access the voter registration database. There's a lot of technical things that need to go on before the data center can start. But we don't have any people to run it. And I know the local boards, especially the larger ones, are getting more and more concerned every day, as I am. But that's where we are.
So, the State Board of Elections, through one of our sister agencies, has acquired space and equipment. State Board is going to be, has already started doing the technical survey to see whether it's there, but we don't have the people. The entire state government in Maryland, we don't have people that can be shared to allow this thing to come off. Is that effectively where we're at right now?
Yes, and it has to be, we require anybody that has access to our systems to have undergone a criminal and passed a criminal background check. So not everyone that works for state government has to do that. So we could do that with the people, have a criminal background check occur if they haven't had one, but that takes a little time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it costs.
I believe you were going to check with the judiciary to see if they had any available staff, since it's likely that they have criminal background checks.
Yes, I have that on my list to do.
And I don't know about others, but there may even be many within Department of Public Safety and Corrections that have criminal background checks. I think of other state entities that might fall in that same category.
Yeah, we've been trying.
Okay, I'd like to request that you keep the board informed of any significant development or lack of development on a literally day-by-day basis. I don't mean a report saying nothing happened today. I mean, a day that something happened, good or bad, that you should email out to the board. And I believe this board is certainly willing to reach out and ask for assistance. I know that the administrator has already done so, and if it would make a difference that it was the board doing so, I have no doubt we would be willing to do so. It's a critical choke point in being able to pull this thing off. All right. Anyone else have anything further about the November 3rd election, excluding the start date for canvassing or the approval of early voting or election day voting centers? Because those we're going to deal with on the agenda anyway. Is there anyone have anything else? Yes, sir.
Just a comment. I want to thank and congratulate the SB staff. It is my understanding on drop boxes, I may have these numbers off by 1 or 2, but we had 75 drop boxes for the June 2nd primary. You can just nod up and down, Nikki, if that's right.
Yeah, I think I don't know the exact numbers, but you're close. Yeah.
Okay. Then you ordered 45 more. And then you ordered another 150, which gives me a grand total of 270. I think that's phenomenal. And I want to thank the SB staff for doing that. I want to thank the vendor for producing them. I want to thank the locals for once they get deployed. And just on a point of clarification, I believe the plan is to deploy those drop boxes by the beginning of October, within a couple days, plus or minus.
Yeah, the plan is to, at least with the initial 127, is the week of September 28th. And then the remaining are coming in from the vendor, so they'll be deployed as they come in, but there will be at least 127 out the week of September 28th.
Great. And to the chairman's point earlier about people's, the need for people to act early. I mean, that's, if there's a drop box in my county by October 1st, and I have my ballot, there is no excuse not to drop it off.
Yeah.
Sorry to be so directive, but I think this is going to help tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any items? Okay. With that, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is changing the start date for the canvassing. Let's tee that one up.
So I will. So we distributed just before the meeting a draft document to outline the 3 provisions of the election law article that we are proposing to suspend. And Andrea, stop me at any time if I'm, going off script. For the first, they all 3 relate to when counting of ballots can start. So as you know, counting of ballots starts after Election Day. The law says starting Wednesday after, the regs say Thursday, but starting after Election Day, the local boards can start counting ballots. And counting under the definition in the election law article means opening envelopes, removing ballots, and then literally tabulating them. So counting is very broadly defined and includes checking for signature and checking for timeliness on the ballot envelopes. So we're looking at, you may recall earlier this month in a letter or memo from the Maryland Association of Election Officials that they requested moving the start of the canvass to before Election Day, which is consistent with what we did in the special general election in April and the presidential primary in June. Their initial request was for October 5th, authorizing the local boards to start that count on October 5th. They have since requested it be moved to October 1st. So that one of the questions before you is when would you consider authorizing them to start counting ballots before Election Day? There are 3 provisions in the code that would need to be suspended to implement that. They are 11-302A as in apple, B1, so B as in boy 1, and E. All of them relate to either words that imply or directly say that counting starts after Election Day. And so all 3 of those provisions would need to be suspended to allow for counting to start before Election Day, and then also to decide on what day before Election Day would you like to allow them to start. So the draft document says October 1st. I flag that as something to discuss and present that to you for your consideration.
One question, Mr. Hogan. Does the administration have a recommended start date?
I think we're fine with October 1st, the proposal by the Maryland Association of Election Officials. We don't have any objection to any particular day.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just couldn't find my unmute button, sorry.
All right. Mr. Hogan, I think you had.
Yeah, just a couple points of clarification. One, no matter when they start canvassing ballots, the results are embargoed until 8 p.m. on November 3rd, right?
Yes, so thank you. Yeah, very important piece.
I just don't want anyone out there. I think we all know that. Got to remember, actually, there's 101 people listening to us. Who knew? But I want those 101 people to know that, okay, that yes, we're going to start counting early, but the results are embargoed until 8 p.m. on November 3rd. My second question is, this will read, a local board shall meet to canvass the mail-in ballots cast in that election no earlier than, fill in the date, October 1st being proposed. They could start on October 3rd under this if they are mired down in other things. You know, they're still trying to get out ballots. They're still trying to get out, whatever it might be, change registration, whatever it might be. So I have no problem with October 1st. Obviously, I'd want the LBEs to start canvassing as soon as possible, no earlier than October 1st, as soon as they can start. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's no earlier than, and so you're right. They have other considerations to balance. They may not have received enough ballots yet to make it efficient to start. So this is just authorizing them to start on October 1st, but they can choose to start later, and they would just need to provide that notice on their website of when they plan to canvass, and they did that for the primary election.
I mean, if you think about it, that is, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but to Ms. Howe's concern, which I agree with, the time it's going to take to duplicate ballots, the sooner we start, the better. I kind of thinking, well, if somebody is requesting a ballot to be delivered, via the web delivery, they're likely going to get it. If they're that type of person, they're probably going to fill it out very quickly and mail it in or drop it off. So the sooner they can start duplicating those and counting those, the better. And by letting them do it by, October 1st, that's a good month before actual election day.
Anyone else? So the first question, to the administrator. Will this action endanger the public health, welfare, or safety?
No, it will not. In fact, it will promote the public health, welfare, and safety by spreading out the amount of time that the local boards have to do their do the administrative tasks with regard to the ballots and allow them to spread their staff out more.
Thank you, ma'am. Does any member have a question for the administrator on that matter? Okay. It appears to me that the next item would be whether we wish, in fact, to start the canvass on October 1st, as has been recommended to us. And I believe from the comments and prior discussion that there is a sense of the board on this, and I would ask for a motion to approve October 1st as the start date of the canvass.
I would like to make that motion, but I would like to add to that no earlier than October 1st. We don't want to tie them down that they have to do it October 1st, but they should not start earlier than October 1st.
Correct.
And I would make such a motion.
Motion made, second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Then the board has decided to start the canvass no earlier than October 2nd. And at this point, I would draw the board's attention to a document that's circulated and is captioned public notice, dates and times for the canvassing and opening of mail-in ballots and the reporting of unofficial results in the mail-in ballot vote tabulation. This is a formal document. We have approved the October 1st date in the document, and this is now a point where we would approve the document itself. And so at this point, I would note that there are actually several aspects to it that the local boards may not, as Mr. Flynn appropriately pointed out, may not start any earlier, may start no earlier than October 1st, 2020 at 8 a.m. The second paragraph is very similar to that. And the third paragraph embargoes the results in that the requirement to release results at the end of each day is suspended, and that no results are to be released. The results are to be released no earlier than the closing of polls on election day and thereafter at the end of each day of canvassing. So that is what is in the public notice, which is been distributed to board members. And at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve public notice and the substance of the public notice. I have such a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Document is approved. Date is approved. Finding is made. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Next item is on my agenda is approval of early voting centers.
So I'm going to take this. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to take this in Aaron Perron's absence. Typically, you have a very nice PowerPoint presentation, and I apologize, but I am going to try to share the screen that I have to display the map while I talk about Worcester County. So here goes.
Remember, Nikki, technology will let you down, and it will let you down at the moment you need it the most.
Oh, so can you see, what do you see on your screen? Do you see a map?
No, actually, we're seeing emails.
Oh,
A list of
Looks like-
out yeah.
Looks like your
am I
inbox.
out of control inbox?
There you go.
There's the map.
There's the
Okay.
map.
All right, I have two screens. That was my problem. Okay, so we're talking about early voting centers. So typically, these are the centers that come before you for approval, and we are presenting one for Worcester County today. So their typical early voting center is a senior community center, and that center has declined for it to be used as an early voting center. And so the Worcester County Board of Elections is proposing to use the Ocean City Convention Center. I think it's called the Reginald Porter.
No, Roland
No.
Powell.
Roland Powell. Sorry, I knew I should have had it. Sorry.
Former mayor.
Anyway, I should have just stuck with Ocean City. Thank you. I'm sure I offended somebody. I had no intention of doing that. So you see the map, which shows the typical standard for early voting center with one early voting center. So the requirement in regulations is that 50% of the population lives within 10 miles, and this center does in fact meet that. 71.8% of the registered voters in Worcester County live within 10 miles of the proposed convention center. It is 100% accessible. It is accessible by public transportation, and it's been used as an election day polling place for years. So I'm presenting that for your consideration to move the typical early voting center in Worcester County from to the Ocean City Convention Center. And Patty Jackson, the election director from Worcester County, is on the line if you have any specific questions about that facility. But we recommend approving this change in light of the pandemic and the associated issues resulting from it.
Is anyone? Comment? That being the case, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the requested change to early voting site by Worcester County.
So moved.
Moved,
So moved.
second,
Second.
seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. And it's approved.
Thank you. I'm going to try this again.
Early voting center, right?
That's the only early voting center we had. That's correct.
Okay.
So we have two counties that are proposing changes or they're proposing their election day voting centers. So I'll start with Allegany, which if I've done this right again, you should see that map on your screen. So Allegany is planning to have 6 election day voting locations. Their early voting center is at the Allegany County Office Complex, which you see there on the map. And they are proposing 5 election day vote centers, 3 of which are high schools. 1 is a middle school and 1 is a fire department. The map shows that there's not a standard for election day vote centers like there is for early voting, but there 83.5% of the voters live within 5 miles of one of the 6 vote centers. They are, oh dear, hold on. I have this here. They are, all have been used previously as a polling place. So there's an established track record with each of these facilities. They are all accessible for voters with disabilities, and 4 of them are accessible by public transportation. The one that is not is the Flintstone Volunteer Fire Department. And Diane Leibel, the election director for Allegany County, is on the phone if you have any specific questions about these 6 locations. Again, these are 1 early voting center plus 5 election day voting centers, all of which will be open on election day.
Nikki, I guess my question is, you have 3 right there together within a few miles, and then you've got a whole area that seems like it's not covered at all. In fact, you've got 3 centers. They are, looks like a Venn diagram the way they're interposed on each other. Is there a particular reason why you have 3 right there in that location and not 1 south of Foothill Flintstone Volunteer Fire Department, where there seems to be population there.
So I will, David, if you could please unmute Diane so she can respond to Malcolm's question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So what is south from Flintstone would be Old Town Volunteer Fire Department, polling place. And that area services about 800 people. A lot of that area makes up the Green Ridge State Forest. And then the other area would be District 16, which has about 1,500 registered voters, which is really only about 10 minutes from any of those other sites. Old Town would be the one with the furthest distance to drive there.
Okay. So I'm looking at the map and I'm assuming that the red dots represents population. I see you have a big space there. There's nothing there. That's the forest.
That's
Is that
right,
correct?
Green Ridge State Forest. That's correct.
But then you have an area almost like southwest of the Flintstone Fire Department and east of the, what's this other location? East of the Fort Hill High School. And the areas that seem to be covered at all. Is there not another location that could move that third circle over a little bit to cover that, to be within a certain range? I'm just looking at that group of that population that it seems not to be covered at all, whereas you have population right there near in the center, and they can have a choice of any one of three places to go.
So Malcolm, if I can just, in fairness to Diane, so the last map, the standard was the diagrams were 10 miles. These are 5-mile diagrams. So we use 10 miles for early voting centers because that is in the regulations. We don't have a similar standard for election day, but we've been using 5-mile. So if this were extended to 10 miles, Diane, would it cover then the population that Malcolm is asking about?
It would cover the majority of that population, yes. There would still be some people out in the Old Town area. The issues out that far is we will not have any cellular connections out there. They have terrible connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments about this?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment. I think that point about the cellular connectivity is an important point, and I'm glad you raised it. I want to just take this opportunity to commend Allegheny County for making the decision so quickly, utilizing the high schools. Congratulations. I think you're the first done.
Thank you.
I have one question. This is Mike. Out of curiosity, how many high schools do you have in Allegheny County?
We have 3 high schools, 2 in the Cumberland area, and then 1 in the western end, which is Mountain Ridge. And we're utilizing all 3 of the high schools. The area that was in question, they haven't had a high school for probably 15 years. That whole area consolidated, excuse me, with Fort Hill High School. And then the Westmar Middle School, that used to be the high school there, and they lost their high school to consolidation probably 20 years ago. And that's why I kind of picked up Westmar Middle.
Yeah, you answered the question, and actually more information that actually was useful in the sense that everybody, even in the parts that Malcolm was pointing out, they know where the high school is that they're, that's used by where they live. I was actually just following up on PJ in the sense that you have exceeded the high school number. And that's a good thing. And I think you deserve to be commended for that as well.
Thank you.
So, any other questions or comments? that in mind, then state would entertain. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the election day voting center plan by Allegheny County. May I have such a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Allegheny County's plan is approved. And
Thank you.
county
So
as
we have
well.
one more, right? One more, Dorchester County. Oh, I thought, hold on. Dorchester County. So Dorchester and Allegheny both submitted these early. So do you see Dorchester on the screen now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so Dorchester County. So these are, again, election day vote centers. The early voting center in Dorchester County is the Dorchester County Office Building. They are proposing to use both high schools in Dorchester County, Cambridge, or South Dorchester, and North Dorchester. They are both 100% accessible for individuals with disabilities. They are both accessible by public transportation. And again, the diagram on here is 5 miles, and 72.4% of the registered voters in Dorchester County live within 5 miles of one of the 3 proposed centers. Jessica Norenbrock is on the phone from the Dorchester County Board of Elections if you have any specific questions about these facilities or locations.
Nikki, before we go any further, the boundary for Dorchester County, the southern, actually southeastern boundary, can you see it on your map to run your cursor down it? I think I know where it is, but I'm not sure.
Okay, you're going to embarrass me that I don't know the geography of the bottom of the county. So I will ask Jessica to tell, and then I'll use my cursor to
She can walk.
show it. I think it's the water, but
I think it's too, yeah.
Jessica or David, can you release Jessica, please? Or allow her to speak? Either of which way sounds terrible. We'd like to hear from Jessica, please.
We're holding them captive. We have to release
I
them.
know, it sounds like it. Jessica, are you there? Okay, maybe Donna. Donna is our good map person. Donna, is it right? The boundary, southern boundary is the water?
Yes.
Thank
This is
you.
Jessica. Can you hear me?
We can,
Yes.
thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
So the
so,
question was, where's the southern boundary of Dorchester?
yep.
Yeah, you were correct. The water line.
Okay, so right where the cursor is now, if you go up that river there, is that the boundary line?
Yes. And then follow it around. Yep, that's correct.
Well, yeah, that's the coast. Come back down, Nikki. Now go in that body of water there. Now go up that channel, not that channel. Go up that, is that the boundary?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You know, I said that. I didn't know what you, something to see with. Okay. And then it goes up till it hits Delaware, I guess. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. And would it be correct that the other 28% of your county is southwest?
They're very spread out. So it's a very large county, but very rural and a lot of marshland, and the rest of that percentage is pretty spread out.
Okay. And the number of high schools that you have in Dorchester?
We have 2.
Okay. So everybody knows where the high school.
Yes.
Okay. My curiosity being satisfied, comments or questions from the board?
Well, I think it's only fair that I congratulate Dorchester County for the tied Allegheny County on getting it done, and
Thank you.
All right. And With that, if there's no other comments or questions, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the Dorchester County Election Day Voting Center plan. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And Mr. Hogan, you voted, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I vote aye. Sorry.
thank you. Motion carries and the Dorchester County plan is approved.
Thank you.
Do we have any others? I think not.
We do not. We will have more at the next board meeting, but those were the ones that we received in time to review and map and present.
Our kudos to those that came in first. Thank you.
One thing, Nikki, you guys are using the 5-mile radius on this.
We
I'd like
did for election day vote centers, yes.
I'd like you to keep doing that.
Okay.
Because it's one thing for the early voting where we're expanding it very broadly. It's another thing where we're replacing precinct level voting. And that close in the population center. So I think that that was a good decision on the part of the agency, and I'd like to request that you continue to use the 5-mile for all counties. Okay, that completes the approval of EDV centers. Old business. Anyone have any old business? None? Anyone have any new business? None? Would anyone care to disclose campaign contributions? Okay, Nikki, I have National Republican Senatorial Committee, $50. National Republican Congressional Committee, $55. And McSally for Senate, $30. And that takes care of that. Scheduling of next meeting. I think as we all know, we're in a fairly hectic period right now. I would propose Thursday, the 27th. That might actually be blocked off by people anyway, because it would have been our normal meeting. How's that sound?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have a legislative hearing from 1 to 4 that day.
Okay. We could try it earlier.
I'm available earlier.
Okay. Or we can move it, we could, I'll tell you that the 26th, Mr. Velp is not available. He let me know that earlier today. So he's not available on the 26th, that's Wednesday.
How about the 28th? How about the 28th?
Well, it's okay with me. How's everybody else? It's okay with Mr. Velp as well.
Yes, any chance we could start at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, I would like to start earlier too.
Well, there you go.
Even earlier than that, but I'm just throwing out 1 o'clock, earlier than 2.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine with any time that Mr. Velp indicated he's available all day on that day. So I don't think there's a time issue for him. I know there's none for me. Ms. Howell, what's your preference on time?
No, I'm wide open on that day.
You want to go with noon? Would that make
SB
it-
staff, do they have any problems?
No,
I'm
you
sorry,
Fridays.
wait, yeah,
Fridays
I
are
lost
usually,
track of-
For
Fridays
Friday,
are
you
usually pretty good for
want to go
us.
with noon or 1?
Your call.
Your call. Oh, really?
Malcolm, do you want 1 or noon or 1?
Noon works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get it over with.
If it doesn't interfere with anybody's lunch, if you're providing lunch, we can start at 11 o'clock.
Well, actually, we are providing lunch. It's just not being delivered. It's all.
Thanks a lot.
Darn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we try. Okay, 1,200 hours noon.
Oh, 1,200.
Friday, the 28th of August for our next meeting. Anybody have anything further? Hearing nothing, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, multiple times. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.